Debt collecting is big business, and in fact, next to identity theft, the Federal Trade Commission receives more complaints about rogue debt collecting than any other activity. Bad Paper is a new nonfiction book that tells the story of two unlikely partners, a former banking executive and a former armed robber who team up in a quest of paper. That's the uncollected debts that are sold off to banks for pennies on the dollar. It was written by Jake Halpern, who is an author, radio producer, and journalist. Nice to have you here, Jake.
Hey, thanks for having me.
This is an interesting topic. I didn't really know too much about it until I started learning about you and your book. How did you get involved in this?
So I like to say there's two people that got me involved. The first is my mom, because she started getting hounded over a debt that wasn't hers. And my mom is a tough cookie, but she eventually paid these collectors because she just wanted the calls to stop.
Sure.
So after this happened, I started wondering how common is this, and it turns out it's very common. So I wrote a long investigative piece for a magazine about it, and when the article came out, we got a call from Brad Pitt's production company. Oh. And they said, I thought it was a prank call, actually.
I bet, right?
Brad Pitt here. And they said, we want to turn this into a TV show, a fictional TV show on HBO, where you go back to Buffalo with the screenwriter and flush this out. And I went back to Buffalo, and all of a sudden, all these folks who wanted nothing to do with my investigative journalist piece wanted to be part of Brad's team.
I bet, right?
And one of these parties was the banker and the armed robber who had gone into business together and bought all this debt. And so that's the kind of weird path that led me to the story in the book.
Got it. And when you say buying bad debt, what does that mean?
Right. So you have a credit card bill, or I have a credit card bill that for whatever reason we can't pay. After 180 days, the bank will often sell off that debt for a fraction of its value, for pennies on the dollar. And they'll buy it, and debt buyers will buy it and sell it, buy it and sell it as it works its way down the debt food chain. But all we're really talking about here is an Excel spreadsheet with your name, your address, your phone number, and an amount.
Okay.
And so what happens in this story is that spreadsheet gets stolen. And all of a sudden, all these different people start trying to collect the same debt from these few debtors who are totally confused at how all these people have their information. And that's the bad paper in the story.
So explain to us, so you might get a phone call from what you think is a credit card company, but it might not be.
Yeah, and they have all this information about you, which would lead you to believe that it's legitimate. They have your social security number, your address, your date of birth, when the account was opened and closed, the amount. Pay us right now and we'll settle this up. And you may be paying someone that does not own this debt, has no rightful claim to it. The amount they're asking for may be wrong. So consumers shouldn't just blindly believe that it's the right debt. And then you got some people like my mother who pay even though they know it's not theirs.
Yeah, just to be done with it, right?
Just to have the calls stop, yeah.
So who's getting rich off of this bad paper?
Well, the people there's a lot of folks that are making money off it. Some of the big debt buying corporations like Encore Capital and Portfolio Recovery Assets, they're making millions of dollars each year on this. And then lower down the food chain, you have smaller operators that are using all kinds of illegal tactics, and they're also making money. So the whole thing is very profitable, and the people that are paying for it are the ones that are least able to. These are the folks that have lost their jobs and are struggling to pay their bills.
So is that kind of the definition of the financial underworld?
Absolutely. I mean, one of the guys that I write about in the book says to me, he was a former cocaine dealer, and he says it was an easy transition from selling drugs to selling debt. In fact, and collecting on debt, because you only know the person, the supplier, one above you in the food chain. And he did it in part because even if you run afoul of the law, the penalties are much less than they would be in other illegal activities.
Got it. So where can we find your book?
Yes, so my book, I'm happy to say it was an Amazon Book of the Month, so you can get on and you can buy it there. You can go to RJ Julia, which I'm doing an event there later this month. Great independent bookseller. There's a lot of places where you can get it, and hopefully maybe you'll see it in a Brad Pitt related
coming soon, right? You never know. Jake, thanks so much for being here. Interesting story.
My pleasure. Thank you.